What is up, guys? James here from the Light of Riga YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be doing a deck review for the Thelema Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. Well, you know what? A lot of people call it Lo Scarabeo, but they're Italian. It's an Italian company, so I like to call it Lo Scarabeo. I feel like it's probably, I don't speak Italian, guys, so I might be butchering. Maybe it is Scarabeo, but I'm going to call it Scarabeo, because why not, okay? This is a wonderful, lovely, fantasy-filled deck from Lo Scarabeo, and it's very beautiful, and I'm going to show it to you today, and go through it. We'll do a flip through, we'll see all the cards, and we'll talk about it. I've had this deck for quite some time now. I've done well over 100 reads with it. I'd say, well, maybe 200. I've done a lot of reads with this thing, and it is one of my better decks, one of the decks I like to use for clients, and for myself, and for friends and family, so it's just an all-around workhorse deck. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is this lovely box. This box is very sturdy cardboard, and it's something that you could definitely store your deck in. It's you don't see too many cases like this. Let's get this out of the way. You don't see too many cases like this. This is something that you can definitely travel with. Comes with a little top here. Right, it's really cool actually. I like it. I don't exactly store my deck in here since I'm always using it, but if I wanted to, then this would be a great place to do it. This artwork is by Renata Lechner. I don't know if she's Italian or what, but yes, you guys are about to see this is a gorgeous deck. You see all the sides of the box. The second thing you're going to notice is the little white book is not such a little white book at all. It's not little, it's not white, but it's a nice little book. I believe it has 5 different languages. And it tells you kind of the base things. I don't know if you want to pause it there and you can read like a sample of what kind of things it says. But it goes through all the cards. There's no really picture of the card. That's not a big deal. I usually have my deck with me as I read these little white books. And so I don't really need to see a picture in the book. But it gives you a basic definition of the card. No reversals or anything like that. And then I believe it has a few like, you know, pretty standard spreads. Let's see here. I don't know. There's a spread. Let me look here. It just comes with the Thelema spread, that's right. So this is a spread that they've worked out for this deck. 6-card spread. Pretty cool. Very cool. Let's get to the deck now. We'll look at the backs first. And we'll go through the cards one by one. The backs are kind of nondescript. It's just a little space situation here. A little space scenario with a little symbol on it. I'm not really sure what that symbol is. I think someone said it had to do with Aleister Crowley or something like that. I'm not really too familiar with Aleister Crowley, so I wouldn't really know. But let's go through the cards and just flip through it and see what these cards have in store for us. Very good. We'll go through the major arcana first, then the wands, then the cups, then the swords, then the pentacles. So first thing you're going to notice, major arcana, very colorful as we flip through here. And that's what the first thing that really drew me to this deck were the colors. And the colors really pop on this deck, let me tell you. This deck has one of my favorite cards. I'll tell you when we get to it. But yes, the colors. The colors are gorgeous. Obviously, this is a sort of a fantasy-filled deck. And so it's not really depicting modern-day scenes. It's not depicting any real world place, not of this time anyway. It's more of like a fantasy place, but there's not too many outlandish fantasy things. Most of the cards center around a person. As you'll see, like the Hierophant here. Most of these cards have a person who is of interest and is the main focal point of the card, as well as the colors, of course. And it's a bonus and it's a drawback. I'll explain myself in a moment once we get through these majors here. Definitely the colors really do pop, and each major has its own feel. This is one of the cards that I feel is a little bit weaker. The Hermit actually kind of feels like a drawing. All the other cards feel like a picture, photorealistic, but the Hermit feels kind of like a drawing a little bit. The Wheel is one of the few cards without a human being on it, so that's a little bit odd. It feels out of place in this deck, since this is such focused on humans. But I do kind of feel a little bit more of a feminine touch to it. There are a lot of men in this deck, but for most of the... Ooh, look at the depth. For most of the cards, you know, it's going to have a very kind of a feminine slant to it. I guess that's just with the tarot in general, to be honest. This does follow the Rider-Waite-Smith pretty closely. There are a few deviations, such as the Devil here. There's no chains. Instead, he's got a spider web with people caught in his web. So there are a few subtle differences from the Rider-Waite-Smith. Oh, I love that tower. Look at that. That tower is being devastated. Oh, it's wonderful. I really like it. But yeah, it's basically Rider-Waite-Smith. So if this is going to be your first deck, then I think you should be able to pick up and learn from it. Although I wouldn't quite recommend it for absolute beginner. This is this is definitely my favorite card in the deck, and one of my most favorite moon cards I've ever seen. Look at the colors on this; just they're brilliant, they're gorgeous. They're the intuitive purples and blues. The colors really give you a sense of what is meant to be derived from the card. So when you see greens, you just kind of think Earth. And you feel grounded and pentacle energy. When you see blues, you feel like communication or intuition. When you see the yellows, you think of wands and you think of action. So this card does rely heavily on coloration to help tell the story of what these cards are trying to tell us. You'll notice the wands here are mostly reds and oranges, so just the action feelings. But yeah, as you see here again, very Rider-Waite-Smithy. Very Rider-Waite-Smithy. Just a few variations. But like I was saying earlier, most of these cards on this deck have people. They're like the center point is people. Maybe not so much the wands here as we go through the wands. And I've heard a criticism is that there's just not a lot for your intuition to go off of in these cards, and I would sort of agree with that. There's not too much happening in these cards since the coloration and people are sort of the focal point. There's not too much going on in the background, so it's a little bit hard to, if you use your intuition in that way, in the way of finding details in the card, then this may not be the deck exactly for you. But I've been finding a strategy that I've been using with this deck has worked out really well for me in conjunction with my intuition. My intuition works in a very strange way, and even when I'm not reading tarot, it's hard to describe, but it's like an internal dialogue in my mind between me and someone else. And it's just like me having a conversation with some higher being, which in the tarot's case, I'm assuming is my higher self. And so I have like a very conversational intuition. It's like I'm just talking to somebody, and this person is giving me information. So what I do with the Thelema Tarot is I go into the card, I close my eyes, I go into the card, and I ask the person in the card, I visualize their face, and I ask them, what is this card trying to tell me at this time? And then I have an internal conversation with the person in the card, and it's worked for me very well. And I haven't missed the tiny details that a lot of people use to spark their intuition because of this reason. Because I'm able to go into the card and ask the person what they're trying to tell me. And it's worked for me in this deck fantastically. Is that a word? I don't know. Fantastically's got to be a word. As you'll see here, the cups are kind of very watery. The colors are kind of a little bit muted, and the cups are kind of a drab color in this deck. It's kind of strange, kind of bizarre, but definitely has the mystical quality to it. As far as the physical aspects of this card, these are highly glossed cards. Now, you might find that as a great advantage or as a great deterrent. It just depends on your preference, I guess. But to me, I wasn't so enamored with the enamel. I wasn't so enamored. Wow, that's an awesome little sentence I just made there. But yeah, I'm not so enamored with the enamel because I don't know, it makes them kind of whooshy. I don't know. It's hard to pick up on screen sometimes. It seems to be doing okay right now, but sometimes it's so glossy that my camera can't focus on them. And if you have a lot of light source in your reading room, then you're going to get a lot of glare when reading these cards, which is something that I'm not for. I prefer it to have a matte finish, but the glossy is not horrible. It's not horrible. So I can live with it. But what makes up for it is the fact that there are no borders. Oh, I love borderless cards. Otherwise, I would have to trim this deck, right? Because these images just pop so well that you would not want borders to kind of conflict with that. And Lo Scarabeo, they've made the great decision not to include borders on this deck. And I think it was a fantastic decision in the end. But yeah, again, the gloss, not so great. Not so great, in my opinion. As far as the cut of the cards, I was a little bit disappointed. The cards, at least in the deck that I received, I don't know if this is a printing fluke or if this is the standard run of the cards. I'd have to see more decks, but it seemed like they weren't completely evenly cut. So when I go to shuffle them, it really has the feeling of like a trimmed deck. If you guys have ever trimmed your own decks, you know what I'm talking about, where all the sides don't feel exactly even. And it's very... it's not really perceptible unless you're really perceptive about these sort of things. But yeah, when I go to shuffle, I just feel like not every card is the exact same size, and it's so minute, so imperceptible unless you're really looking for it, that I wouldn't call it a drawback. It's more like something that I should mention. Look at the 10 of swords here. Oh, she's not having a good day. As you can see, the swords are more of like, you know, an airy feel, so you got a lot of clouds and a lot of darker grays, like storm clouds on the horizon. So I really like how the colors tell the story of this deck. It's really a really cool addition to this deck, and it really helps to bring this deck alive. I did notice that one or two cards did not have any gloss on it, and of course that is definitely a printing error, so I wouldn't expect that to happen in your deck if you do decide to purchase this. But if you do have this, let me know. But yeah, I guess it was an anomaly. But I think it was like the 6 of swords or something, maybe one other card didn't have the gloss on it, so you can imagine how, you know, how much that card sticks out from all these highly glossy cards. As we get into the pentacles, you're going to start to notice more greens, so it's, you know you're reading about earth feelings, and it's just a wonderful deck that I highly recommend to people who are either beginners or intermediate tarot readers. I think that maybe the far more advanced readers might like I said, have some trouble jogging their intuition if they don't use the method that I use. Okay, so like for instance, the 6 of Pentacles, it might be kind of hard to read intuitively. So I wouldn't, maybe I don't know, maybe rank beginners shouldn't start with this deck. But once you get a feel for the Rider-Waite-Smith system, I think anyone can read this deck. So I would recommend it to anyone who's, maybe if this is your second deck, I would highly recommend this deck. Maybe not your first deck, but you can still learn pretty well. I also wouldn't depend on the little white book, which is not so little, not so white, just because it doesn't go in depth into the cards. It just gives a quick blurb, and especially if you're trying to read reversals or trying to learn reversals, this is not the guidebook to go off of. Okay, you're gonna have to learn reversals otherwise. But overall, Thelema Tarot and Lo Scarabeo have definitely impressed me, and this is a deck that I use for my client readings all the time, and I've gotten great responses from this. It's just a gorgeous deck that you can read for anyone. Kids, there's no nudity. You can do kids, adults, and everything in between, and I think it'll be just fine. So there is my review of Lo Scarabeo's Thelema Tarot. It's a beautiful deck. It's something that I would recommend to most people, definitely. Look at the colors. Just look at the colors, guys. It's gorgeous. Okay, so if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say about this deck, leave them in the comment section below. If you got something out of this review, please leave a like so that I know that I did something right. You could always book a reading with me through my Etsy shop, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. Okay, I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this. Happy taroting. Peace.